Wow. Merci beaucoup, Anna. Home. Bring it home. Thank you. Thank you. Bring it home. Bring it home. Merci beaucoup, Anna. Merci beaucoup, Anna. Merci à la petite fille de Pointe-aux-Trembles. Je me souviens de la première fois que j'ai vu Anna il y a plus de 10 ans. Pendant quelques secondes, je ne pouvais même pas respirer. Qui est-elle? Je me suis demandé. Beaucoup de gens demandent exactement la même chose ce soir. Qui est cette brillante et belle Québécoise et pourquoi est-elle avec cette tête carrée qui a perdu ses lunettes? The day I knew she was the one was we were driving back from Montreal to Ottawa, and the under engine cover had come off, and it was dragging like 1,000 fingernails on the highway. It was dead of winter. We pulled into Herb's repair shop, and I went inside Herb's, and it was completely dark. And so I yelled, "Herb, Herb, Herb, Herb." Herb didn't come, so I went next door to the gas station, and they told me that Herb had been out of business for a long time. So then I returned to the car to find that Anna was underneath it, tying it back into place with her hair elastic. And it stayed in place all the way to the mechanic shop in Ottawa, where they told us we could just leave it that way because she had tied it so strongly. And that was when I realized that I was dating McIver. But isn't that common sense? Common sense problem solving. La magie d'Anna, c'est la magie du Québec et du Canada. Parce que ce n'est qu'ici que son histoire est possible. Because it is only in this country that a Venezuelan refugee and the adopted son of school teachers could stand on the stage, the leading stage of Canada's oldest and biggest political party. Only here could that happen. Only in Canada. Only in Canada. Only in our country. Bring it home is right. Thank you. And I want to thank my own parents. It's because they made the decision to adopt me and worked hard in front of a classroom that I now stand proudly in front of this room. Thank you so much, Mom. Thank you, my mother. Mais ce qui est extraordinaire dans cette histoire, c'est que c'est ordinaire. L'endroit d'où vous venez ne détermine pas où vous allez. The promise of Canada was that a kid could start anywhere and get anywhere. Hard work used to get you a powerful paycheck that bought you good food and a decent home and retirement in a safe neighborhood and a free country. And every generation was just a little bit better off than their parents. That was the promise of Canada. And that is the most important promise Justin Trudeau broke. You see, because politicians often break their own promises, but this is different. This promise didn't belong to him. This promise belonged to all of us. But my friends, it is a promise that Canada kept for me, and it is a promise that I will restore for all of Canada after the next election. Now, we don't know when that election will be, but when it comes, Canadians will have only two options: a common-sense conservative government that frees hardworking people to earn powerful paychecks that buy affordable food, gas, and homes in safe neighborhoods, or a reckless coalition of Trudeau and the NDP that punishes your work, takes your money, taxes your food, doubles your housing bill, and unleashes crime and chaos in your neighborhood. Laissez-moi répéter. Le choix, c'est un gouvernement conservateur guidé par le gros bon sens qui défend des Canadiens qui travaillent fort afin qu'ils gagnent plus et paient moins pour la nourriture, l'essence et le logement. Ou Justin Trudeau et le Bloc qui punissent votre travail, prennent votre argent, taxent votre nourriture et doublent le prix de votre logement. Et soyons clairs, beaucoup de ces politiques sont rendues possibles grâce à l'appui du Bloc. Si les Québécois veulent se débarrasser de Justin Trudeau pour de bon, seul le Parti conservateur peut le remplacer pour vrai. C'est vrai. Pour vrai. C'est donc un choix entre un pays où les gens qui travaillent fort réalisent leurs rêves ou un pays où le gouvernement divise entre bons et mauvais Canadiens. Un gouvernement qui se mêle de tout, mais qui n'est bon dans rien. Where people get ahead based on merit and smarts, not based on entitlement or inheritance. Speaking of inheritance, no, I'm not talking about Justin Trudeau's family fortune, which he hid out in a tax-protected trust fund. I'm talking about the country that he inherited. Did any prime minister ever inherit a richer legacy? Did any prime minister ever squander it so thoroughly? Think back to how we lived when Justin Trudeau was elected. No, really, think. Interest rates and inflation were rock bottom. Taxes were falling faster than at any time in Canadian history. The New York Times had calculated that Canada's middle class, for the first time ever, was richer than America's middle class. Thank you, Stephen Harper. The budget was balanced. Thank you again, Stephen Harper. Crime had fallen by 25%, so low that small-town folks often left their doors unlocked. Our borders were secure. Housing costs were half of what they are today. Take-home pay had jumped 10% after tax and inflation. All this despite a once-in-a-lifetime financial crisis in the U.S., and wars in Syria, Iraq, Afghanistan, and yes, Ukraine. Funny how when Stephen Harper was Prime Minister, none of those wars caused inflation in Canada, right? Yes, when Justin Trudeau took over, Canada was rich, affordable, and safe. And he promised that if he had a big government that took more power and more money, he would change everything. And boy, did he ever. That is the only promise that he kept. So what has changed? What has changed? 8 years later, inflation, after already hitting a 40-year high, is back on the rise again. And the economy is shrinking. GDP per capita is actually smaller today than it was 6 years ago. And Canada's growth is now projected to be the worst in the entire OECD, not just for the next 6 years, but for the next 3 decades. Housing costs have more than doubled after Trudeau promised to lower them. It takes 25 years now in Toronto to save up for a down payment. Do you remember when you used to pay off the entire mortgage in 25 years? Some families have to stretch their mortgage out 90 years now, which means that they will have to live to be 120 to ever be mortgage free. Under Trudeau, Canadian homes cost over 50% more than US homes, and you can now buy a castle in Sweden for a lower price than a 2-bedroom in Kitchener. It's almost incredible to say these things, isn't it? But this is life after 8 years of Trudeau. Toronto is now ranked the world's worst housing bubble, and Vancouver is the third most unaffordable housing market in the world. Worse than New York City, worse than London, England, worse than Singapore, a tiny island with 2,000 times more people per square kilometer than Canada. Meanwhile, Trudeau's carbon tax has forced 1.5 million people to food banks, and it caused a fifth of all people to skip meals. Les aînés vont devoir couper dans leur repas pour payer la taxe Blanchette Trudeau, une nouvelle taxe de Trudeau sur l'énergie que le Bloc veut, et je cite, radicalement augmenter. Ça coûte cher voter Bloc. Oui, ça coûte très cher voter Bloc. Trudeau. And amazingly, Trudeau has doubled our national debt, added more debt than all 22 prior prime ministers combined. And just to end the suspense, the budget has not balanced itself. Shootings, gang killings, overdose deaths have all doubled. Trudeau is spent and Canada is broke or broken. Now, he's objected to that term before, but actually he agrees with it. Justin Trudeau and I agree that things are broken. We just disagree on what and who broke it. You see, he blames the country itself. He blames Canada. He says our country has no core identity. By the way, my daughter keeps heckling me over there. She does this at home all the time. She's preparing to be a member of Parliament. So. Mr. Trudeau says that Canada has no core identity and that it's not the best country in the world. What kind of prime minister, after 8 years of leading a country, would say that it's not the best country in the world? And what does that say about how he's been governing it? J'ai été très soulagé d'arriver ici à Québec et de constater que cette magnifique ville que Justin Trudeau a effacée de notre passeport existe toujours. Il a honte. Oui. Le Québec existe toujours, c'est vrai. Il a honte. Il a honte de notre patrimoine commun et de notre histoire. C'est pour ça que Justin Trudeau a effacé de notre passeport le Royal 22e Régiment et les autres monuments glorieux de notre histoire. Il a dit qu'on n'a pas d'identité en tant que pays. Justin Trudeau wants to cancel our proud history, erasing it from our passports. Our great military triumphs, gone. The famous 5 who secured women's rights, gone. Even Terry Fox had to go. Why? Because there can be no heroes but him. So he replaced these images in our passport with an image of himself swimming as a boy at Harrington Lake and pictures of snowflakes in honor of members of his Liberal cabinet. You know, this business of deleting our past must end. And this is a matter on which English Canada must start to learn from Quebec. Quebecers, and I'm saying this deliberately in English, do not apologize for their culture, their language, and their history. They celebrate it, and all Canadians should do the same. Vive le Québec! Vive la nation québécoise! Vive la nation québécoise! Les Québécois se battent pour préserver leur langue et leur culture. Mon père, qui a des origines canadiennes françaises, me promettez que le Père Noël allait être plus généreux si j'étais capable de rédiger mes listes de souhaits en français. Mais malgré ça, j'avais perdu mon français pendant mon adolescence à Calgary et je travaille chaque jour pour l'améliorer. C'est pour ça qu'Anna et moi sommes déterminés à parler français à nos enfants, à les envoyer à l'école en français. C'est aussi... C'est aussi pourquoi j'ai voté fièrement à la Chambre des communes pour une motion conservatrice pour reconnaître la grande nation québécoise. Et c'est pour ça que je serai toujours un allié du Québec, du peuple acadien et de tous les francophones à travers le pays. Un plus petit gouvernement central fera la place pour un plus grand Québec et des plus grands Québécois. What is worse than what Justin Trudeau thinks about Canada? It's what he thinks of Canadians. He calls them small, fringe, and angry. Recently in Charlottetown, he said everybody needs to stop picking on him because, quote, it's a really tough time to be a politician. Does anybody have a violin? No, Mr. Trudeau. It's a really tough time to be the 74-year-old truck driver I met door knocking in Bowmanville, who just got his eviction notice despite always paying his rent on time. Finding another place will cost him $700 extra per month. He doesn't have $700 extra. So his choice now is to go to his full-grown daughter, his little girl, and ask to live in her basement or become homeless. I didn't know what to say to him. What is he supposed to do? Go back to driving a truck 70 hours a week? He's 74 years old. His back can't take that. But I didn't see anger in his eyes. I saw fear. Mr. Trudeau, if you think life is tough for you, you should meet the carpenter I met at a Tim Hortons in the Sioux, who lives in a parking lot because he can't afford the rent. He wasn't angry either. But I was angry for him because an economy where the people who build our homes cannot afford to live in them is fundamentally unjust and wrong. La famille qui a vu ses paiements d'hypothèque augmenter de 1 000 $ par mois, elle n'est pas fâchée non plus. Elle a simplement peur de ne pas pouvoir payer pour garder le toit au-dessus de sa tête. If the Prime Minister thinks he has it tough, he should talk to our youth. Almost all of them. We have youth here today, right? Yes, we do. Almost all the young people I meet these days, they have 2 jobs, sometimes 3. Not to save up for a home, they've long ago given up on that goal, but just to avoid getting evicted. They'd love to have kids, but they're running out of time and there's nowhere to put them in their $1,500 a month studio apartment. 8 years ago, their eyes beamed with possibility. Now they have big black bags under their eyes as they drop off another midnight Uber Eats delivery, their 3rd job. Mr. Prime Minister, our youth are not angry. They're too exhausted to be angry. He should meet the mom who broke down and told the cashier at the grocery store that all that she can afford is the half-price chicken that is past expiry, which gives her family food poisoning. And the cashier said, I can relate. I live in a tent. It's not anger in their voice, Mr. Prime Minister. It's anxiety. They can't sleep at night because they don't know what they're going to feed their children in the morning. If Mr. Trudeau thinks politicians have it tough, he should meet the veterans that asked his department for help with post-traumatic stress, and they were told to consider instead medical assistance in dying. Remember, this is the Prime Minister who famously told our veterans that they were asking for more than he could give. These soldiers and veterans are not angry either. They are heartbroken that the freedoms they fought for abroad are not respected or repaid here at home. For our veterans, for our veterans, for our veterans. And instead of apologizing to these people for the hell he's put them through, Mr. Trudeau instead calls them names. He wants Canadians to blame each other and not him. He divides divides to distract using race, religion, region, sexuality. He thinks that if you're afraid of your neighbor, you'll forget that you can't afford your groceries. You see, Mr. Trudeau and I agree that things are broken. We just disagree on what's broken and who broke it. He thinks the people are the problem. Canadians know he is the problem. But we won't let him divide us anymore. We won't let him put our country and its people down to push himself up. Canadians are not small or angry. They are big, generous people. They deserve better than this. They no longer have to give up the things that we used to take for granted, affordable homes and foods, to pay for the incompetence and ego of one man. After 8 years, Justin Trudeau is not worth the cost, and he is not worth the country that we know and that we love. But you know the hopeful thing in all this? The hopeful thing is we know what the problem is. And we know it can be fixed. Because life wasn't like this before Trudeau, and it won't be like this after he's gone, which proves that we can turn the hurt into hope. Ladies and gentlemen, we will do this with a Prime Minister that unites all of our people, that casts aside the things that divide us and focuses instead on the things that we have in common. A Prime Minister that opens his arms and wraps them around every single Canadian, every region, with every story, because we have one common future that we share together, right? But to get on with the future, you have to have a to-do list. And the first thing on my to-do list is to axe the tax, to bring home lower prices. Axe the tax. Axe the tax. Axe the tax. Axe the tax. On va abolir la taxe Blanchet-Trudeau. The carbon tax is not just a tax on gas and heat. It's a tax on food. After all, if you tax the farmer who makes the food and the trucker who ships the food, then you tax all who buy the food. And now Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh want to quadruple the tax to 61 cents a liter, forcing seniors to choose between eating and heating. C'est une nouvelle taxe fédérale qui s'ajoute à tous les autres taxes sur l'énergie déjà en place, imposée par Justin Trudeau. Mais que dit le Bloc? Il appuie, mais il y a un seul point de désaccord. Le Bloc pense que le taxe devrait être radicalement augmenté. Radicalement augmenté. On savait que ça coûtait cher voter Bloc, mais soyons clairs, le Bloc veut prendre l'argent des Québécois et le donner au fédéral. Cette taxe Trudeau-Blanchette, c'est une taxe sur l'essence des agriculteurs qui cultivent les aliments et les camionneurs qui les transportent. Donc, c'est une taxe sur tous ceux et celles qui achètent la nourriture. C'est une taxe sur les travailleurs et les propriétaires des petites entreprises dans les banlieues et dans les régions qui ont besoin de leurs camions pour travailler. J'ai un message pour M. Blanchette et M. Trudeau. Dans les régions, les gens ont besoin de leurs camions et leurs voitures pour leur quotidien et vous n'avez pas le droit de piger dans leurs poches encore. Right. Je vais non seulement abolir la taxe Blanchette-Trudeau, mais je vais mettre fin à la guerre contre l'auto. C'est ça le gros bon sens. There's a second tax I'll get rid of, the inflation tax. Yes, inflation is a tax. When governments print money to fund their spending, they raise prices. Now, normally with a tax increase, you have to have a vote in the House of Commons to change the law, raising a rate or introducing a new tax, a new levy. That is a rule that has lived for 800 years since the Magna Carta required the Crown get the consent of the people before taking their money. But politicians have since that time found a sly way around the rule. Instead of passing a law to raise the tax and being held accountable for it by the people who pay the tax, they just get their central banks to create more money. And that money, of course, goes into the economy and bids up prices. It is a sneaky tax because politicians don't have to vote on it. But it's also an immoral tax because it steals from the seniors' savings, the workers' paychecks, and takes food from the mouths of the working poor. It is a silent thief, quietly picking the pockets of the poor. It is there, pulling money out of the wallet of the elderly grandmother as her $100 all of a sudden only buys $80 of groceries. And there it is again, the thief, reaching into the bank account of the young family who now has to wait 25 years to save up for a down payment. The radical money printing deficits of Justin Trudeau, funded with newly created cash, caused the money supply to grow in coins, bills, and bank deposits from $1.8 trillion to $2.4 trillion. A mind-blowing 32% increase in the supply of money while the economy grew by 4%. In other words, the amount of money grew 8 times faster than the stuff that money buys, which bid up the cost of everything. And now Trudeau forces the same people who suffer from his inflation to pay higher interest rates to stop it. Recently, former Liberal Finance Minister John Manley said Trudeau's deficits were pressing on the inflationary gas pedal, which forces the Bank of Canada to press on the brakes with higher interest rates. These higher rates now collide with the very over-indebted families who the government encouraged to take on overpriced mortgages to buy overly expensive homes. Time is running out for these families. If rates rise before these families renew their mortgages, they will lose their homes. My common sense plan cuts waste and caps spending to bring down inflationary deficits and interest rates so Canadians can keep their homes. Here's how we'll do it. When I'm Prime Minister, we'll adopt a dollar-for-dollar law. It works the same way you run your personal finances at your household, the way single moms and small businesses budget. When they increase over here, they decrease over there to pay for it. So this is appealing, not just to the common sense of people managing their household budgets, but to the basic reality of economics as described by the great Thomas Sowell, who said the first law of economics is scarcity. People always want more than there is to have. And the first rule of politics is to ignore the first rule of economics. But we're going to bring that rule inside government. Every time a politician has a bright idea to spend money, he will be forced to root out waste in his own department to pay for it, rather than just passing the bill on to you in higher inflation, taxes, or debt. Speaking of waste, we will cut waste. We will get rid of the wasteful and pointless $54 million ArriveCan app. You know, it's funny. It's funny. A couple of IT workers, as a gag, decided to see if they could design the ArriveCan app from scratch. And they managed to do it in a weekend, and it didn't cost $54 million. My suggestion is that they send that app to Trudeau and call it the ResignCan app. We'll end the $35 billion infrastructure bank that, despite paying bonuses to executives, has not completed a single solitary project yet. We will stop giving money to foreign dictators and global bureaucracies like the Beijing-controlled Asian Infrastructure Bank. Trudeau gave the Asian Infrastructure Bank $250 million of your tax dollars to build the same pipelines and highways over there that we can't build over here. When I'm Prime Minister, there will be no more of our money going out of this country to most multinational bureaucracies that are corrupt or foreign dictators. We will bring home our money for our people in this country. Bring it home. Bring it home. Bring it home. Water. And we will end bonuses for incompetent government executives and central bankers who fail to do their jobs. Et nous n'allons plus financer les dépassements de coûts du secteur privé et des autres paliers du gouvernement. Si les autres gouvernements ne peuvent pas gérer leur budget, eux autres vont devoir trouver l'argent. On ne va plus donner la responsabilité aux contribuables. Les contribuables ont déjà payé plus. I will restore. And we're going to restore and enforce the low inflation mandate that Brian Mulroney legislated into place in the early 90s. It will mean the Bank of Canada, once again, will have only one job, and that is to keep inflation low for Canadians. You know, it's funny that balancing the budget to keep inflation and interest rates low was the unanimous policy of all the major political parties at all levels of government for 30 years, right up to the radical departure under Mr. Budget's balance themselves. Think about it. Mulroney, in fairness, Chrétien, Martin, Harper, even NDP provincial governments believed that budgets needed to be balanced, not for the accountants, but to protect future funding for our schools, hospitals, and roads. That common sense consensus drove down debt, inflation, unemployment, while growth rocketed up to quarter-century highs. And many common sense grassroots liberals and New Democrats still believe it today, even if their out-of-touch leaders do not. Ici, même au Québec, sous le leadership de, par exemple, Lucien Bouchard, un souverainiste, il a équilibré les budgets pour préserver les programmes sociaux. L'heure est venue de rétablir ce consensus fondé sur le gros bon sens pour vaincre l'inflation et pour protéger notre avenir. Instead of creating more cash, we should create more of what cash buys. Grow more food, build more homes, and produce more resources right here in Canada. Bring it home. So let's start with homes. Let's start with homes. Thank you. We got a very excited group over there. Those are my friends from Brampton up there. Good to see you, Bob and friends. We need homes in Brampton. We need homes everywhere. We need to stop printing money and start building those homes. L'accès au logement, après 8 ans de Justin Trudeau, dégénère. En fait, on pourrait dire que c'est une dégénération, comme la chanson « Mes aïeux », qui va comme suite. Et puis toi, mon petit gars, tu ne sais plus ce que tu vas faire. Donc, ton petit toit et demi, bien trop cher, fret en hiver. Il te vient des envies de devenir propriétaire et tu rêves un jour d'avoir ton petit lopin de terre. N'est-ce pas? Un petit lopin de terre! Un petit lopin de terre! Gros bon sens! Gros bon sens! Gros bon sens! Gros bon sens! Et c'est une belle mélodie des générations. Mais pourquoi pas un petit lopin de terre? C'est le moindre des choses qu'on devrait avoir si on travaille fort et si on possède un énorme montant de terrain vide ici au Canada. N'importe qui devrait pouvoir acheter une maison. En fait, ça devrait être l'endroit le moins cher d'acheter une maison. In fact, given our land mass, this should be the cheapest place in the world to own a home. In fact, there are only 4 countries on planet Earth that have more land per capita than we do. So with all this land, why is it that we have the fewest homes per capita in the G7? Well, the answer is that we built fewer homes last year than we did in 1972. Our population has doubled, and we're building fewer homes. Now, let's figure out why that is. What do you think is the most expensive thing that goes into building a new home in, say, Vancouver? Labor? Lumber? Land? Nope. Government. And we know this because C.D. Howe did a study where they compared the cost of materials, labor, land, and profit to the final sale price. And there was a $1.3 million gap between them. In Toronto, it was $350,000. That gap is the taxes, the delays, the consultants, the lawyers, the charges, the fees, the zoning changes. On and on it goes. These costs drive up the price of Canadians to buy a home. Canada has the second slowest building permits in the OECD. The UK and US offer building permits 3 times faster without compromising safety. Une autre étude montre que l'Hôtel de Ville à Montréal a empêché la construction de 24 000 nouvelles maisons et appartements. The city of Winnipeg had to be slapped down by the courts because they blocked 2,000 homes right next to a transit station that was built specifically for those homes. And what is Trudeau's response? He gives these local bureaucracies more money to build themselves up and block homes. He has not built homes, he's built bureaucracy. Now, at a federal level, he's built up a bureaucracy at the CMHC that slows down financing for the builders of affordable apartment units, all the while we have a homelessness problem. When I'm Prime Minister, my government will stop giving tax dollars to gatekeepers. My common sense plan is to have a new funding formula that links the number of federal dollars cities get for infrastructure to the number of houses they allow to be completed. More specifically, we will require big cities permit 15% more home building per year or lose federal infrastructure money. Pas de logement, pas d'argent fédéral. 2, those that beat the 15% target will get a building bonus, right? Incentives work, and we will pay for results, for roofs over heads and keys and doors, not for promises. Je vais payer pour les résultats et non pas pour les promesses. To get federal funds for transit stations, cities will be required to permit new high-rise apartments all around future transit stations that are funded by the federal government so that our seniors and our students can live right next to the bus and train. And I will sell off 6,000 federal buildings and thousands of acres of federal land so that we can build. Bill, bring it home. You know, it just warms my heart to think of the beautiful family rolling up in their U-Haul to their wonderful new home in the former headquarters of the CBC. Moins de bureaucratie, plus de maisons. We will make sure that Canadians have powerful paychecks to pay the rent and mortgages. We will liberate the mighty strength and smarts of our workers to make more of what we need. We will honor hard work in this country. And that's about more than money. Work brings dollars and dignity, paychecks and purpose, burdens and blessings, a good living and a good life. But today, there's a war on work, with taxes that punish earners and gatekeepers that block jobs. Every time a worker turns around, he's punished for doing the right thing. You make it, Trudeau takes it. Oh, you want to take an extra shift? They claw back your child benefit. You get a bonus. They bump you into a higher tax bracket and take away your reward. You're on disability. You want to get a job? They take away your medication. You're an immigrant doctor. Forget it. You're stuck on minimum wage with no way to prove your qualifications. A single mother in Ontario earning $50,000 a year who goes out and earns another dollar loses 96 cents to clawbacks from the federal, provincial, and municipal governments. Une mère monoparentale au Québec pourrait perdre 80% du prochain dollar qu'elle gagne. The experts call this the marginal effective tax rate, or meter. You've heard of a parking meter, right? You pay to park. A work meter is when you pay to work, right? No good deed goes unpunished. Ça me rappelle de l'histoire du garçon qui demandait à son père, « Papa, c'est quoi une déclaration d'impôt? » Papa répond, « C'est l'inverse de ton bulletin scolaire. Quand tu as fait bien ton travail, t'es puni. » It's true. A tax form is the opposite of your childhood report card. The better you do, the more you get punished, right? But it's not just a matter of money. It's a matter of hope. When people find that no matter how hard they try, they get nowhere, they say, what's the point? They can't move forward. In fact, they can't even see forward. Humans need to progress towards an achievable goal. They need to feel valued and valuable. Le travail, c'est plus que gagner sa vie. Le travail engendre une vie gagnante. Mon plan, fondé sur le gros bon sens, réduira les impôts pour que le travail redevienne payant. My common sense plan cuts income taxes so that you bring home more of each dollar you earn and hard work once again pays off in this country. Bring it home. But in order to bring home a paycheck, you first have to have a job. And that's why we will cut taxes and red tape to bring home our businesses, our money, and our jobs to Canada. We will work with the provinces to create a merit-based Blue Seal qualification system so that immigrant professionals, like the 20,000 immigrant doctors and 32,000 immigrant nurses currently banned from working, can take an exam, prove they are qualified, and if they are, get to work earning powerful paychecks, reducing wait times in our hospitals. And without apology, we will bring home our energy and resource jobs to this country. Absolutely. Canada has the know-how to unlock the massive energy in our waters, our rocks, and even our atoms. Yet the Trudeau government has blocked, in different ways, almost every form of energy we have. Yes, we all know that they shamefully killed pipelines in favor of foreign dictator oil, but it's not just oil. When the Germans and the Japanese came knocking, asking for our natural gas so that they could break their dependence on Putin, Trudeau said, "No, go call the Kremlin. There's no business case." Well, apparently nobody told the Americans that there's no business case. They built 6 liquefaction facilities. No one told the Qataris they more than doubled their production. No one told the Germans, who took a natural gas liquefaction facility from concept to completion in 194 days. And yet, Justin Trudeau has blocked the completion of all 18 natural gas liquefaction plants that we had proposed when he took office. This is crazy. We have 1.3 trillion cubic feet of natural gas, and we can liquefy it with 25% less energy. Why? Because of our cold weather. It makes it cheaper to liquefy gas here than in the United States. It's cold in Canada. It was so cold in Ottawa last winter, Justin Trudeau was seen with his hands in his own pockets. His environment minister has protested against nuclear power, and his fisheries department blocked Nova Scotia from developing zero emissions tidal power from the oceans. And what has all this done for the environment? Nothing. With all these taxes and all these gatekeepers, Canada has missed every single emissions target and now ranks 58th out of 63 in combating the real problem of climate change. The International Energy Agency says the world will be using 50 million barrels of oil every single day for the next 20 years. And that's under the most restrictive scenarios. And Trudeau and the NDP want that oil to come from polluting tyrants like Iran and Venezuela. I believe that the country that invented the Canadarm and insulin can produce these barrels cleaner and greener than any other country on earth. My common sense plan repeals the anti-resource law, Bill C-69, and replaces it with a law that will protect our environment, consult First Nations, but get projects approved in 12 months, not 12 years. We will support Newfoundland's plan to double its energy production, ending the need for overseas dictator oil being imported to our country altogether. We will massively increase production of emissions-free energy by green-lighting green projects like zero-emitting, small modular nuclear reactors. So that New Brunswick, Ontario, Saskatchewan, and Alberta can have this clean energy. And carbon capture and storage will make our oil sands the world's lowest emitting. We will approve more hydro dams and tidal wave power to turn water and gravity into lightning. We will grant permits for natural gas plants to safely ship it off to replace dirty coal in Asia and to break European dependence on Putin. Yes. And we will harvest the minerals of electrification from our mines using our workers rather than importing them from Justin Trudeau's favorite coal-burning dictatorship. Et je sais qu'au Québec, l'hydroélectricité rime avec fierté et avec raison, le génie québécois en matière de construction de barrages est reconnu mondialement. Mais le Québec aura besoin de 100 TWh supplémentaires d'ici 2050 pour répondre à la demande croissante. Ça représente une augmentation de 50 %. Pour lutter contre le vrai problème de changement climatique, il nous faut plus d'hydroélectricité et rapidement. Mon plan, fondé sur le gros bon sens, utilise la technologie et non pas les taxes, en incitant les entreprises à réduire leurs émissions, en donnant le feu vert aux projets verts, comme les barrages et les éoliennes. Fini les dédoublements d'études et les obstacles fédéraux de toutes sortes, en produisant des minéraux ici et non pas les importer de la Chine. Voici le choix. Voici le choix. Blanchette et Trudeau veulent radicalement augmenter le prix de l'énergie traditionnelle. Moi, je veux réduire le prix de l'énergie verte. Eux, ils choisissent les taxes. Moi, je choisis la technologie. Eux, ils choisissent d'envoyer notre argent aux dictatures étrangères. Moi, je choisis les travailleurs canadiens. So here's the choice between the costly coalition and my common sense plan. They choose taxes, I choose technology. They push up prices of traditional energy we still need. I'll push down prices of carbon-free alternatives. They put stop signs in front of our workers. I will green-light green projects, and most important, they send dollars to dictators. I will bring home paychecks to our people in this country. Bring it home. Bring it home. And speaking of home, home will be safe again. As a result of Trudeau's catch and release policies, crime, chaos, drugs, and disorder are common in our streets. His catch and release bail law, C-75, allows a thug to assault an elderly woman in the morning and be out on bail by noon to do it all over again. After the law passed, Vancouver police had to arrest the same 6,000 criminals. I'll start again. It's so baffling that it's hard to actually appreciate the numbers. They had to arrest the same 40 offenders 6,000 times in a year. That's 150 arrests per criminal per year. The good news is we don't have a lot of criminals in Canada. The bad news is they're very productive. So if you put those highly prolific criminals in jail, you'll have less crime. Now, Liberals and New Democrats say this is so simplistic and you'll have to build all these jails. Funny thing is, when we did it under the previous Conservative government, not only did we bring crime down by 25%, incarceration rates actually fell. Why? Because we targeted the worst offenders and we scared all the other potential offenders away. So we had so much less crime, we actually needed less prison space. It's common sense, my friends. Le Bloc a voté en faveur de ce projet de loi de libération rapide des récidivistes violentes, tout en appuyant l'interdiction des armes de chasse. J'ai un message pour Yves-François Blanchette. Ce n'est pas le chasseur de Saguenay qui cause la criminalité au centre-ville de Montréal. Ce sont les criminels que vous voulez libérer qui ont causé ce crime. I have a message for Justin Trudeau. It's not the hunter in Labrador that's shooting up downtown Toronto. It's the criminals you keep releasing. Let's leave our hunters alone and respect our lawful and law-abiding firearms owners. So my common sense plan is jail and not bail. Jail and not bail for repeat violent offenders. We'll reverse bans on hunters and licensed sport shooters, and we'll use that money to jail gangsters and bolster borders against illegal drugs and guns from the United States. And we will give treatment, not decriminalized and tax-funded drugs to addicts. We will bring home our loved ones drug-free once again. And using the dollar-for-dollar principle, we will pay for it by suing and collecting hundreds of millions or billions of dollars from the corrupt pharmaceutical companies that profited by lying about the dangers and addictiveness of the opioids that have caused this hell on our streets. We will bring home our loved ones drug-free, and we will bring home safety again to our streets. The safety of our country in a dangerous world depends not on attending yet another gab fest at the UN or, God forbid, Davos. Nor do we secure Canada by sending more and more aid to foreign dictators. It is by standing on guard for our country and rebuilding our military at home that we protect our country. Absolutely. Give it up for our soldiers, sailors, airmen, and veterans. We'll take resources from back office bureaucracy and incompetent procurement and put it on the front lines to rebuild our military and honor the brave men and women who protect our freedom. But they didn't fight for our freedom abroad so the Prime Minister could take it away at home. He said he admires the dictators in Cuba and Beijing. His radical censorship laws, which Margaret Atwood called creeping totalitarianism, and which make news disappear from social media, violate our constitutional freedom of expression. We will repeal Justin Trudeau's censorship laws and restore freedom of speech on campus, online, and everywhere in Canada. We will enact a foreign influence registry to expose those paid by foreign dictatorships to interfere in our democracy. And we will shut down foreign-controlled police stations. No sovereign country should ever let a foreign dictatorship run police and stations on its soil. In sum, we will bring home control of our democracy, give people back control of their lives, and make Canada once again the freest nation on earth. Okay. Freedom used to be uncontroversial. Freedom was part of the Canadian consensus. Liberals believed in liberty, conservatives believed in conserving it. Today's liberals run down freedom so that they can justify taking it away. So often today, we hear that we can't allow freedom, that we need bureaucrats and experts to dictate what ordinary people can hear and say, because ordinary people, in quotation marks, can't make their own decisions. But let me tell you, my friends, I've met these so-called ordinary people, and they are not ordinary. They are extraordinary. And they have the common sense of the common people to make their own decisions and be masters in their country. que monsieur et madame tout le monde ont besoin du gouvernement pour prendre leurs décisions. Ce n'est pas vrai. Si vous voulez voir la bonté, la grandeur et le génie, ne regardez pas à ceux qui sont au sommet. Regardez plutôt les gens autour. Vous savez, nous les appelons les gens ordinaires, mais ils ne sont pas ordinaires, ils sont extraordinaires. La mère monoparentale qui travaille debout toute la journée, rentre à la maison épuisée, enseigne les mathématiques à ses enfants et équilibre son budget familial avec un salaire minimum. Elle n'est pas ordinaire, mes amis, elle est extraordinaire. L'agriculteur capable de manier science, seul et tempête pour amener la nourriture de son champ jusqu'à votre assiette n'est pas ordinaire, il est extraordinaire. L'électricien qui capte la foudre et le fait passer dans une file de cuivre pour nous éclairer, il n'est pas ordinaire, il est extraordinaire. Mes amis, ces gens sont censés d'être maîtres chez eux, même s'ils ne sont pas célèbres. Lorsqu'ils meurent, leurs noms ne sont pas dans les manchettes. Il n'y a pas d'éloge à la Chambre des communes. Sans trompette ni tambour, ils ont porté leur famille, leur communauté et leur nation sur leurs épaules. La vraie bonté, la vraie grandeur, le vrai génie, ce sont ces gens. Notre raison d'être est de se faire leurs champions avec leur gros bon sens, unis autour d'un idéal commun, le Canada, notre chez nous. Yet these extraordinary people feel like strangers in their own country, with how horribly things have changed, and with the Prime Minister trying so hard to erase our memories. It's easy to forget how good things were and how much better they can be. You know, the most important job of any leader is to bring hope. Hope is what Canadians need now more than ever. Hope is something that you feel, but it's hard to picture it. So let me paint a picture for you of students laughing and walking down safe streets to class, the distant drumming of hammers driving nails through Canadian lumber into yet another beautiful new Canadian home. Shopkeepers sweeping clean storefronts at the end of another day, waving to seniors heading home with a car full of groceries and change in their pockets. As daylight fades to night, kids are heard pleading for 10 more minutes of street hockey before bed, and then quiet. And a young couple sits on their front porch, soaking in the summer warmth. A Canadian flag hanging gently but proudly from the front of their house, with a cold drink in one hand and a paycheck in the other. They look into each other's eyes in a way that can only say, the hard work paid off. The sacrifices were worth it, because finally, we're home. Ladies and gentlemen, that is what it means to bring it home. These are our people. This is our country. This is our home, your home, my home, our home. Let's bring it home.